Hello everyone, my name is Lucas. I'm 35 years old. So what I've got is a very interesting story about a 2020 camping trip in Poland that led me to uncovering of a very significant criminal case, as it seems. Now this story is very complex and ongoing, and so I'll be releasing it in parts. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure to visit my website spyairline.com for all the updates in the case. A little bit about myself. I used to work for a private aviation company, one of the most renowned private aviation companies operating on this planet. It's a global aviation company, but the office that I used to work in is based in London. Talking about a company that offers private flights for the wealthiest and the most influential people on this planet. I worked there as an analyst for 2 years before being dismissed in December of 2020. Now it all starts in Q1, Q2 of 2020 when the whole pandemic coronavirus thing came about. Most of the London office was put on furlough. The government scheme introduced at the time, which allowed furloughed staff to essentially do nothing and still collect 80% of their paycheck. So I was furloughed in April of 2020, and in June of 2020, when all the restrictions kind of, loosened, I decided to go to Poland for holidays. And around that time, I was invited to this camping trip by an old friend of mine, whom I hadn't seen at the time for 5 years. So it was quite, unusual, out of nowhere. But I'm a very I'm a very social person. I never say no to any social gathering. So I was very I was very keen. And obviously everything that I say here can be treated as a testimony, right, under penalty of perjury. The purpose of this video is to serve as a sort of a testimony on this case and bring perpetrators to justice. Before we continue, I need to introduce some of the key characters in this case. I'm going to start off with Sebastian, around mid-40s, very muscular, very fit guy, very funny guy, charismatic, very cool to be around. We met in 2008. We were, both collecting military equipment, like collectibles, reenactment, that kind of stuff. He still does that. He, if you look at his Instagram account, he posts a lot of interesting pictures, videos. He does collect a lot of modern military equipment. Spends a lot of time at the gym, as you can see. If you have any questions about any kind of military equipment from any era, this is the go-to person. He knows everything about like the smallest details. He will have a lot of information about it. A lot of very knowledgeable guy. And as mentioned before, the last time I saw him was in 2015, right? During those 5 years, despite many attempts to meet, and I'm in Poland quite often. At least a month in a year I'll be in Poland. Yeah, it never came to fruition. We were not able to meet each other for 5 years, and then all of a sudden 2020 he comes up with this camping trip invitation. So overall cool character, funny guy, really cool to hang around with, as you can see. Franciszek, early 30s, 33 years old currently. He's 2 years younger than me. We met whilst playing airsoft early 2000s. We were part of the same airsoft team. Now Franciszek, he is an avid fitness guy. He spends a lot of time at the gym as well. And he's a policeman. He joined the police force in 2017, if I remember correctly, 2016-17. Peter's another friend of mine. He's same age as Franciszek. We were part of the same airsoft team as well. Now Peter An interesting guy. He spent some time in London, supposedly doing modeling. Now I'm not too sure what he does officially. What he's involved in is videography, photography. Pretends to be a film director of sorts. He even what he's known for is in 2012 he directed this film. It was filmed in Gdańsk, Poland, but what's funny about it is action technically takes place in California, so you have all the characters speaking with foreign accents, including myself. He never released that film. That film never saw daylight for some reason. Anyway, so these two characters are supposedly my best friends. We don't spend too much time together, and again, I'm in Poland at least 25 days a year, but we don't really spend that much time together. But still, I consider them as my two best friends. Piotr is Franciszek's best friend. As it seems, they spend a lot of time together, they hang out together, they train together. Franciszek told me that he helped him to lose 30 kilos over a course of 12 months. Mateusz, same age as me, currently 35. He's a policeman in Gdańsk, or a former policeman in Gdańsk as per his Instagram account. Mateusz is probably one of the most popular policemen in Poland. He has a lot of subscribers, followers on his Instagram account, posts very regular content. He's also on the side, he's a firearms instructor. Well, currently it might be his main profession. He's a firearms / tactics instructor. He spends a lot of time at the shooting range. He shoots a lot of ammo. And Mateusz also comes from that airsoft / reenactment background. That's how we met. Guy shoots a lot. Yeah, he's very knowledgeable. His firearms skills are somewhat resembling those of a seasoned operator in an SF unit. So July 10th, 2020, Franciszek and his friend Biały, they arrived at my parents' flat in evening hours, between 8 to 9 p.m. And they asked me to join them in the car. So I did. In the car, both of them seemed a bit intoxicated, slightly tipsy. They were both holding cans of beers. They were smoking something that wasn't necessarily cigarettes. We had this chit chat, however you want to call it, lads banter. What was interesting is that Franciszek was holding his tablet, and he was watching a YouTube video of a parliament committee hearing. In Poland, there was this massive fraud called Amber Gold. Essentially, it was a massive Ponzi investment scheme that caused a lot of people to lose their money. Huge scandal in Poland. It even involved an airline, a massive scandal. And obviously there was a parliamentary committee established to investigate the case, that fraud. Franciszek was watching that on YouTube. It's not exactly something you would expect to watch, especially not in that situation, right? But I thought maybe it was just, he was just being drunk, and he's just watching it, right? What was happening on that video is there was essentially a witness on stand, and that witness kept on repeating that she does not recall the situation, saying that she doesn't remember or she doesn't know. And it seems strange. I just thought he was drunk, right? And it was definitely odd. So once I discovered the case in November 2020, I questioned Sebastian about that night. And as you can see, the answer that he gave me was very similar to that of that witness.
Jezus, jak policjant, zachowuj się jak policjant. Jakby się mnie policjant pytał, co się wydarzyło rok temu, odpowiedź byłaby prosta. Proszę pana, ja nie pamiętam, co robiłem tydzień temu.
In the same conversation, he also asked me about advice on making porn, which obviously I took as banter because at no point in time, we're not involved in porn, right? And just it's just banter, right? So I told him, just I can help you out with castings and stuff. So your usual banter. Now, at some point, Biały, his colleague, who was the driver, he asked me about a possibility of helping him out with accommodation in London because he, quote, killed someone and needs to leave Poland to avoid prosecution or something. And obviously, I took it as a joke. Who would say such a thing, right? So I told him, I can, you can sleep on a couch, or I can hook you up with something. And obviously I didn't mean to help him out. I just, I was just making conversation. It was interesting. At some point during that meeting, my coworker from that private aviation company called me up on house party, and I declined that call because obviously it's quite an awkward situation, right? It's dark. I'm sitting in a car with two dodgy characters, right? It's not exactly something I want to convey to my coworker from that private aviation company, right? And then I would have to introduce them and all that. It would have been awkward, right? So I declined. The moment we started working from home, it became a thing. It was just every single day there were calls, video calls on house party, and then around June they stopped. So the fact that she called me up was quite unusual. A month of a pause, right? She calls me up, and she calls me up exactly when I am in a strange situation. So that seemed kind of strange. Franciszek also mentioned that he helped Biały lose 30 kilos in a matter of 12 months. So that was interesting. So anyways, I went back home. I went to sleep. I couldn't fall asleep the entire night for some reason. I don't know what it was, but nevertheless, I'm used to not sleeping and still doing stuff. Anyway, so I rented a car from one of those car renting apps, and off I went to collect Sebastian. When he met me, he was quite happy. He complimented me. He said that because obviously we didn't see each other for at least 5 years. We didn't see each other for 5 years. So he complimented my looks. He said that I don't have to, you look great. You don't have to lose weight. And it was, like I said, he's a positive guy. That's the people you want to surround yourself with, just immediately good energy, cool stuff. We went to the gas station. He bought some cigarettes. I bought Monster energy drinks for both of us. We chit-chatted a bit, and off we went. Now at 11:32, Franciszek posted a video on our Facebook Messenger group.
Siema ziomeczki. Kabzior się pyta, Pietras. Pyta Kabziora, w jakim zakresie kurwa kręci tego pornosa? Czy ma być kurwa z biciem i pluciem, czy bez? Siema ziomeczki. Kabzior się pyta, Pietras. Się pyta Kabziora, w jakim zakresie kurwa kręci tego pornosa? Czy ma być kurwa z biciem i pluciem, czy bez?
He's asking what kind of porn will I be filming, right? Will it include spitting or not? And obviously I didn't reply. I just took it as one of, just part of the banter, right? Now on the way to Bydgoszcz, Sebastian insisted on making multiple stops. He had to, quote, stretch his legs, which essentially was a code word for him having to, smoke a cigarette.
Rozprostuję, filmik musi być. A nic, po prostu, nie?
Once we arrived at Bydgoszcz, we did some shopping, obviously barbecue, barbecue stuff. So, you know, as you can imagine, mostly alcohol, sausages, right? Some kind of soft drinks. Yeah, just your usual barbecue shopping, right? And then off we went to Tomasz flat. When we arrived at Tomasz flat, there were 5 individuals in the flat. Tomasz himself. Tomasz is Sebastian's friend. He is in his late 40s. I met him in 2011. I hadn't seen him since 2012 at that point. Tomasz also does reenactment. He collects British military equipment. He does British military reenactment. Also, he has a separate room with World War II memorabilia. Yeah, a lot of artifacts from World War II that he himself dug up from areas around Bydgoszcz. There were a lot of battles, especially in 45, 44. Germans were retreating from Poland as the Soviets were pushing in. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff. That's one of his hobbies as well.
No, kurwa, gdzie coś tak jest? Ja pierdolę.
Bogdan, that was the first time I met him. And yeah, guy, mid-40s. As per his own claim, he is supposedly a designated marksman / sniper within the Polish army. That's as far as that's as much as I know about him. Maciek, that was the first time I met him. However, I had him as a Facebook friend for a while. Might have been me who added him because of the outrageous profile picture and the fact that we have common friends. So I figured that guy must be funny. I had him as a Facebook friend for a while, although I did not meet him up to this point. As per his own claim, is an air traffic controller in a Polish airbase. Boris, roughly same age as me, maybe early 40s at most. Also an air traffic controller from its Air Force Base. Marek, also it was first time I met him. Maciek is Tomasz's son, roughly mid-20s. Supposedly he was working for remotely. And it was based in London because I remember Thomas said it works just like you in London, but it's remotely, something along those lines. Half of these people I met for the first time, and the remaining half I hadn't seen for a very long time prior to this camping trip. Tomasz and Maciek 8 years, and Sebastian 5 years, so it was quite unusual. Obviously at the time it wasn't, but now I think it's worth noting. So obviously they all were slightly tipsy, right? They were drinking already, minus the drivers. Yeah, so the atmosphere was quite, funny. Sebastian was given a gift. These are so-called dead man's shoes, right? So anyone who knows Sebastian knows a story about him selling cheap dress shoes that were designed to be put on deceased people at funerals. He sold them as as full, like real proper quality dress shoes at a local market during 90s or early 2000s, and people would buy them and they would go to a important ceremony, I don't know, a wedding, and those shoes then would fall apart, right? And sort of an inside joke, right? But perhaps it was a hint. Now, the camping trip was supposed to take place in an old estate belonging to Tomasz's friend, Ryszard, gentleman in his, 60s, 70s, lives in a very, it's a rundown apartment, so to speak, but it seems like they're good friends, and he let us use the part of his property to have the camping trip, right? On the way to that estate, we stopped by again to do some shopping, pretty much in the same place. Sebastian did some tricks with a hunting knife.
Amerykańska narzędziowa od polskiej narzędziowej to się nic nie różni, bo standardy stali narzędziowej są chyba na cały świat te same, kurwa. Cinka!
No.
Zgotowani? Leci, no? Nie, kurwa. Sorry. Ja muszę okulary założyć. Dobra, kręćcie. I tak go dzisiaj skręcę, kurwa, wielokrotnie. Nie ma już, ja później. Cinka! I języczek zrobiłeś?
Niech ktoś cień. Niech przejdzie fan z tyłu, będzie lepiej wyglądało. Czej?
Z tego
No, jest profil, no.
Cinka! Już, ja później. Cinka! Z tego
No, jest profil.
Cinka! No wystarczy. Tak ma być, nie? Na minutę. Wiem, że będę tak Zrób im numer z Chinką. W okularach. Zrób im numer z Chinką z okularach. Seba, no. O kurwa, ile razy ona powtarza? Ostatni raz. Chinka. Koniec, kurwa.
On the way in, I asked Sebastian to record some of the outdoors because obviously it was, quite unusual. And as you can hear, he very quietly said, "Okay, we're going there, and you will die."
Offroad, nie?
Kombajny powinny iść, albo te wielkie stopy.
Dobrze, że to nie mój samochód.
Ja pierdolę. Dobra, kamerę trzeba włączyć.
At the time in the car, I did not hear that. I only heard that when I listened to that particular video around January 2021, because obviously I didn't, I didn't review that footage afterwards. It's just a generic. There was no need for me to review that footage, right? But I did not hear that statement during the drive.
Dobra,
Kamerę trzeba włączyć.
dobra,
Kamerę trzeba włączyć.
dobra.
Kamerę trzeba włączyć. Psa rozjebałem.
Witamy, panie. Nic się pan nie zmieni przez ostatnie 30 lat.
Żeby potek po kapuście nie pojechać.
Ja pierdolę, zobacz. Dowbor nie pojechać. Zobacz, budowany, kurwa, zobacz.
Na strzelnicę.
Tu jakiś, kurwa, ja pierdolę. Depresja można dostać.
To jest pole kukurydzy, kurwa. Idziemy tutaj. Z czym do ludzi? Jakieś kamienie, kurwa, po drodze.
Dobrze, ale gdzie oni się chcą rozmawiać z tymi karimatami, kurwa?
Witam, tak.
Tak, pokaż się po lesie, przygadujesz.
Tak jest.
Dobra, panie Rysiu, samochód. Tak, mam dla pana. Jeszcze trochę, zaraz, pamiętam.
To jest ten sam piesek, nie?
No, tam sporo lat jest. O, jaki Kuba. To ten sam piesek.
What was interesting is once we arrived, it seemed like everyone was, smiling, and it's just a lot of, everyone was smiling, and it's hard. Perhaps it's difficult to see with all the pixels on faces, but I was just used to it. I thought maybe they were laughing because obviously I'm, a bit chubby. By the way, I gained a lot of weight when I moved into London in 2013. Around in a year's time, I gained 30-40 kilos, right? I went from 110 kilos to 140, 150, 160. 150, I think, in 2014. So it's very interesting, and you have to make an effort to put on that much weight in a year's time. Then again, Francesco said that he made Biawa lose weight 30 kilos in 12 months. If you reverse that, it's exactly what happened to me, right? In 12 months' time, I put on 30-40 kilos, right? So I did some drone shots of the area while the rest of the guys were having beer. Had a brief conversation with Maciej. He asked me what do I do for a living. It was a brief conversation, chit chat. Yeah, he asked me about my weight. Replied this much. He said that I should drop it down because someday I might be walking up the stairs and get a heart attack. And he patted me on the chest a couple of times, and that was quite weird given the context that we're about to have some alcohol and unhealthy, greasy food, right? So it was quite an odd statement. That's probably why I remember it so vividly. At some point, Boris, he essentially proposed to repark our cars a little bit to the back, which made sense. It was more convenient. And I think the reason for it was to create parking space for anyone who was planned to arrive, unbeknownst to me, right? But at the same time, it was more convenience. And obviously, we set up sort of a camp, and we started drinking and having barbecue. If you pay closer attention, it seems like there were some odd gestures being made. Now this is a very interesting one. There's a picture of a tractor. Yeah, there was a tractor, but I did not see a tractor with a trailer. It seems like this picture was photoshopped. I'll cover that later. Why would they photoshop a tractor with a trailer? Another interesting bit is the owner of the estate, Richard, looks very similar to a gentleman that Franciszek sent me a picture of. So Franciszek sent me a picture in April. He sent a picture, two pictures on our Facebook Messenger group, and the other person in those pictures looks very much like Richard. So I find it quite interesting. He did not drink with us. He did not. It seems like, I think I asked him why he's not drinking. He mentioned that there's some medical condition or something. But yeah, it's plausible.
Rok jest 6 zrobił, nie? 878, nie? Tylko to jest ciekawe, nie? Tutaj, że te jednostki są, nie? Bo zamiennik...
Pay attention to the number of sixes on this coin. Number of times digit 6 is shown on this coin.
Złocie, nie? Mógł złocie, wymienić złoto gdzieś. Ale to jest srebrny. No survivalowy, no kurwa, no mów Borys.
This one is a great example of Sebastian's vast knowledge about all the military equipment. As you can hear, he knows a lot. He knows every single detail about pretty much any military collectible.
Lotnictwa, kurwa. Pierwszy model miał 6 cali, drugi model miał 5 cali. Skówkę tutaj z blaszki w ogóle, ale ten to jest w ogóle dupę kurwa urywa, gdzieś był kupiony 68 rok w Japonii w PX-ie, made in Japan. Nie jest parkeryzowany, ale jest kurwa oksydowany. Skórka, krążki są tak dojebane, że się w głowie nie myśli. I najlepsze jest to wyświetlane. Łukasz, to jest rarytas, kurwa.
6500?
Poduszkę mam!
At 14:06 on our Facebook Messenger family group, my mom posted a link to a video, some sort of Bill Gates conspiracy thing posted by the anonymous group, 4chan and all that. Seemed quite out of character, but didn't really pay too much attention to it. Then I replied with sending some videos from the camping trip, to which my mom's reaction was, "It's wrong address," right? And as if she was trying to tell me that maybe I sent it to the wrong group, right? But it seems like she meant it geographically, right? Then I sent a couple of videos to another friend of mine who also happens to be a cop, Tomasz. We also met whilst playing airsoft. We all come from the same airsoft team background, apart from Mateusz. Yeah, so Tomasz is a patrol buddy of Mateusz. So I would say we were quite good friends all the way up until 2015, and then in 2015, we kind of lost touch. At some point, they split them up. Reason being, and this is as per Franciszek's account, they had a suspect in the back of their car who died from a heart attack, and supposedly this was the cause of them being separated. So quite interesting, if you ask me.
Jest komentowania, Tomek, pozdrawiam. Dawaj do nas. To nie tam, kurwa, no. Strzelnica, policjanci. Strzelnica, policjanci, kurwa. Przyjeżdżaj. Dawaj to.
Dawaj Tomek, dawaj kurwa, to jest twoja ekipa.
This is very interesting. He said last meeting, 2013 last meeting. Actually, we met in 2015. That was the very last meeting with him. Now, throughout the camping trip, I was sending videos to Franciszek, and we were chatting throughout the camping trip.
A to jest świeży materiał? Teraz tam jesteś?
I believe that throughout those conversations, he was trying to convey something cryptically. At some point, he sent me a video with a hot girl stripping on a bed. The usual stuff that guys send to each other. It didn't seem very unusual, but I suspect that this was some sort of cryptic communication.
Sabes que ya llevo un rato mirándote. Mirándolo, sabe que tu corazón conmigo te hace bamba. Sabe que esa beba está buscando de mi.
Difficult to demonstrate that with blurred faces, but it's apparent that there's a sort of an inside joke going on that I'm obviously not aware at the time.
Już najebka, nie? Już najebka jest na maksie, wszyscy są.
Quite apparent that there was something going on of which I did not have any, the slightest idea about, and this is obviously what they're having a laugh, right? It's quite apparent that there was an inside joke going on.
Coś, kurwa, spotkaliśmy się tutaj,
Obviously, at the time, I had no reasons to believe there's something going on, right? At the time, I did not see any of their behavior as unusual. Now, this is a very interesting part. This is the part where we sing Happy Birthday to Tomasz. And if you pay attention to body language, gestures, you can see that there's definitely something going on in there, which again, at the time, I had absolutely no idea that, it absolutely did not occur to me, right? He most likely was talking about was money, but I'll get to that later. At this stage, it's quite difficult to. It's quite difficult at this stage to explain that, but the theme in this case is it's a lot of money.
Jest nie będzie jad, oddaję urodziny pana Tomka.
Pay attention to Sebastian's body language, gesture, as if he is, that gesture is essentially, he's letting know that this this is not, it's fake, right?
Urodziny pana Tomka, o kurwa, Seba, Seba, do drapania po plecach. Dawaj, ja go was robię. Dobra, kurwa, zamknąć mordy. No musiałbyś tych wyciarów, musiał sobie zamian zrobić z tego. No, bo to jest niesamowite. A ta rączka to
Seba, muzyka leci, nie chcesz...
nagrywać, tak? Stop.
3-4.
100 lat, 100 lat, niech żyje nam. 100 lat.
Obviously, the joke here is that they're making fun of me, and I'm unable to see it, and then that's the joke essentially.
Niech żyje nam. 100 lat, niech żyje nam. Jeszcze raz, niech żyje nam. Niech żyje nam. A kto? Dawaj tu. Masz finkę i otwórz. Finka! Zobaczymy, co tu wszyscy złotych. 1600. Ja słyszałem, że nawet 2600. Ale może powiedzieć 5600. Skropowych. Nie potnij, ale podam górę, ale resztę. Szkoda, że nie ma Jankesa, nie ma skopek góra. Nie przyjechał, bo teraz kurwa jest przez Raburak, no. Na kajaku pływa, i z tą Angeliką 10 lat i udaje, że śmigłowcem się bawi. Śmigłowiec i na kajaku. Piękne z Zakopanej Bieszczady, kurwa.
Same here, you can see it's clearly some sort of an inside joke. Communication, there is no reason for them to come up with such odd statements, right? Again, dog, baby, friends, pederasts, pedophiles. Yeah, those are quite unusual statements, and I think it's quite apparent for anyone viewing this.
Adolescy pederaści może się napijmy, tak? Co to dla dziecka? Na wózka. Szarczy to jest uprząż dla psa, Rattler. Tylko mały, nie? Też nie ma zamków, kurwa, więc a tu jeszcze koleżanka. On się tą torbę zapina, nie?
Now there's no bag, there's nothing, there's no, you don't attach a bag. It's a reference to a bag. That bag reference is most likely 2010 homicide in London of a MI6 Secret Intelligence Service employee who was found dead, locked in a bag from outside in his apartment in Pimlico in London. The bag was locked. He was found dead inside of that bag, naked. The flat was forensically cleaned. Heating was on in August, and it took a week for his employer to find, to figure out that he's been missing from work, right? One of the top renowned intelligence agencies, they didn't notice their employee missing for a week. He was living in an MI6 safe house, right? I don't think it takes Sherlock Holmes to figure out that you cannot, it's physically impossible to lock yourself inside a bag from outside while being in it, and then forensically remove all the evidence in the flat. They conducted some experiments. They did 300 attempts and it didn't work. So yeah, there's that.
A tam jest rozmiar, możemy
Yeah, close the bag yourself. I better delete that, right? That is very telling. It was like a group gift. They were collecting money for that, that vest for Tomek. I did not contribute because I only communicated with Sebastian. He didn't mention any collection. Whoever didn't pay, get the fuck out of the group, right? I never was part of any group group chats with these people. So yeah, quite interesting, right? I'm pretty confident this is cryptic communication / inside joke, right?
Jak? Andrzej zapłacił, a go nie ma, kurwa. No. Łazi pedofil, ale jest kapiel następstwo. Ja na szkół, nie robię. Załóż, albo załóż, Tomek. Andrzej, załóż. Raczej grzyb zapłacił. No dobra, to kończymy nagranie. Tak, tak.
So like in earlier situations, you can notice that there seems to be an inside joke of sorts that they're in on and I'm not, and that is the source of jest and amusement, entertainment to them.
Jankę w chuj! La la! La la! La 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 la! A rano się budzę i zobacz, go się napierdala, bo hałasu wali. Pamiętasz? Marek, pamiętasz to? Namiot zwinąłem, a okna wyjdzie. No chuj, to jest bardzo nisko. Ten tam pozdro z strzelnicy. Nie. Tak? Forest. Ale też nie kojarzy piosenki. To było tam! Jak to był Marek, a z nim musi drapać, kurwa! Lecimy dalej? O ja pierdolę!
So yeah, lower back pain is also a theme in this case. Not at this stage, I'll get to that later, but just to give you some context, there was a co-worker from that private aviation company who died in October of 2019, and prior to his passing, he went to A&E, and the symptom was lower back pain. He went there along with a co-worker, also from the same company, who lived with him. She was a flatmate of his. Yeah, I'll get to that later. Lower back pain is definitely a theme here. At some point, Boris asks for the location of a grocery store, and there was absolutely no reason for him to do so, because nothing was lacking, right? We didn't lack anything, and what I suspect he did there was essentially it was a hint towards a mansion that was still under construction at the time. So essentially, in order to get to that shop, to the nearby shop, you would have to drive past a huge mansion that just looks completely out of ordinary, looks completely unusual. It stands out like a sore thumb, which you can see on the drone footage. That mansion was under construction at the time. It was in its final stages, but it was uninhabited at the time. Coming from that general direction, there is no way you would notice that mansion, because obviously it's up on a hill, it's on the right hand side, at an angle, but coming towards the store, it's you just can't miss it. Here's another interesting bit, and obviously I'll get to that later. At this stage it might seem a bit out of context, but this is a house in Canada. This house belongs to a CRM manager, person responsible for customer records management, Salesforce integration with the company CRM. Notice the similarities between the two, right? But at this stage it seems a bit out of context. I'll get to that later.
No po co? Ale tam, szlak zobaczyć. Albo tam, nie? Jeszcze maka pojedzie.
Tym pożyczonym.
Also notice Sebastian's reaction. He's somewhat shocked, right? Like, why do you do that? Why? You know, there's nothing's lacking, right? So it's quite interesting. It's a very unusual reaction, right? Very nervous reaction, which you can clearly see.
Albo tam, nie? Coś tu maka pojedzie.
Tym pożyczonym.
To jest, to zawieszenie rozpierdolić.
Now at 17:33 or 5:33, either me or Franciszek video message on Facebook Messenger, and he was driving somewhere. He was driving somewhere, and he seemed quite nervous. And obviously it could have been attributed to the fact that he was driving, but he is definitely a guy who can multitask very well. Oftentimes he sends me videos from his car, so I don't think it was that. And as you can see, it seems like he was driving somewhere outside of an urban area, and looking closely at a reflection in his glasses, it seems like he had a passenger, right? It's quite apparent that he seemed nervous, right? It was somewhat out of character. Sebastian changed his shirt, and as you can see, the back of the shirt reads "Faith Family Ducks," right? It fits into that inside joke, inside lingo of sorts. Again, at this point, it might seem out of context, but well, I'll get to that later. There's no reason for him to change that T-shirt. What was interesting is that Mr. Richard, he left. He would leave the property quite often. He would go outside. I don't know what was the reason. It seemed quite unusual. I don't know what was the reason for him to leave the estate. Oftentimes along with Bogdan, and later on with Tomasz himself, as if they wanted to go for a walk of sorts. Very unusual. That's I filmed it.
Niesamowite, kurwa. Nie. Seba tam biegł. I wracał w tą z powrotem. Co, skórę zamknęło? Trawką.
And at this point, there was a very distinct smell of marijuana or weed, which was very unusual because we're out there in the middle of nowhere. There's pretty much no one. There's no one. There's no one surrounding us. There's no one next to us, and definitely no one was smoking anything during this camping trip. It was very, very basic, alcohol, vodka, beer, and sausages, and there was nobody, there was nobody smoking, right? So that was very unusual, but it was a very distinct smell.
Tak ktoś zajerał coś. O Jezu,
Obviously, I didn't think about it twice at the time. I'm just, I'm enjoying myself. I didn't think about it twice. I literally didn't assign any meaning to it. I just found it odd at the time. Everyone's, slightly tipsy. Tomasz seemed flabbergasted. And probably the reason is they're giving me certain hints. They're hinting towards certain. They were expecting me to react to those hints, and they just probably couldn't fathom how I'm not able to see those to notice those hints, right? This is where it gets more interesting. At this point, an argument broke out. Essentially, the argument came down to voting rights, because there was a presidential election scheduled for the next day, July 12, 2020, and the Tomasz's argument was that people who are not tax residents in Poland shouldn't have the right to vote. To which my reply was that I had a completely different opinion. My opinion was essentially, regardless of whether your tax residency is, you know, as a citizen, as a Polish citizen, you have the right to vote regardless, right? And it seemed to have upset him, them, and just a strange argument broke out, as if triggered artificially, as if triggered to
Marek,
Dawaj, ale...
Marek, uderz.
Ja może stopa? Ale dawaj, ja skopa, może...
Marek, skop.
yeah, just all of a sudden from a, you know, a pleasant barbecue, all of a sudden it went, it turned a bit, well, it turned hostile, right?
Z główki, chodź.
Skopać. Ale Marek, chodź Marek, dawaj,
Uczucia,
Weź go.
u niego te uczucia się...
Nagrywasz?
U niego uczucia się tak nabudowały, ta zazdrość. Marek,
Ale bądź, Marek, ale bądź, ale Marek, uspokoiłeś się? Ile razy z nami się spotykałeś?
How many times did you hang out with us? And that was, I should have figured that one out, and it was essentially his way of telling me, can't you see the situation that you're in?
jest okej.
Dobra, kurwa, gdzie jest spokój, Marek? Ale cicho bądź. Mówię, cicho bądź. Ale tam jesteś wśród tego. Nie żygaj.
Zaraz będzie płakał.
Marek, nie płakaj. Cicho bądź. Ja nie mogę z tego śmiechu. Ale Marek, ale nie płakaj. Ale nagrałeś, kurwa, nagrałeś, jaką płaczę? Tak. Spokojnie, ale Seba. Ale teraz, patrz, jaki nerwowy śmiech. Daj mi chwilę, kurwa. No. Bądź. Znowu masz brudne. Ale zaraz go sprzedaj. Cicho bądź, kurwa. On ma brudne. Dobra, cicho bądź. Ale patrz, cała twarz. Ale nie gadaj, na chuj to oczy mam brudne. Ale na chuj słówek, kurwa. Nie pierdol, przecież, nie wiem, mówię, tylko ty to, kurwa. Rodzice mu tak dali, że jest brudny. Całe życie. Jesteś normalny. Marek, całe życie będzie brudny. Ale weź się spokój, kurwa. Ale czekaj, nie. Ale weź się, kurwa, spokój.
A poczekaj.
Ale weź się, kurwa, spokój. Ale ty wkurwisz, kurwa. Ale czekaj, spokojnie. Ale uspokój się, kurwa. Ale czekaj, niech Marek się uspokój. Patrz, się patrzeć. Ale Marek się uspokaja. Uwaga. Ale jeszcze... Zamknij mordę, kurwa. Ale patrzę przy... Ale normalne. Ale nie, zamknij mordę. Zamknij się już.
No, czekam na obrazę, bo ja chciałbym kodeks karny wyciągnąć. Kto dalej?
Kto obraża? Kto? Ale czekaj, jest dalej, no. Nie, ale gdzie
At some point, Tomasz he spilled beer over my head, and I don't know. Maybe he expected me to retaliate. I don't know, punch him or something. I did not, because obviously it doesn't reflect. It reflects on him, obviously negatively. It doesn't reflect on me. He behaved like a caveman, but not me, right? And as you can see, they all of a sudden they got very hostile with me, and just very provocative, as if they wanted to trigger something. You can see them asking whether that they would punch me or something. It felt very artificial. It felt they wanted some sort of a reaction that would enable them to do something. I don't know, call the police or something. Perhaps they wanted to help me, right? Because if that happened, I wouldn't have stayed the night, right? But I think it's obvious that you can see who is the aggressor in this encounter.
No, ale Tomek, nagrałem. Nie, ja będę stał, Tomek, Wypierdalaj stąd. Tomek, ja będę stał. Dobra, uspokój się. Wszystkiego najlepszego, Tomek. Dobra, idź. Wszystkiego najlepszego. Nagraj. Proszę, no nie możesz mi zabrać tego, to
Skradzie.
Spokój się. No, odpocznij. No ale idź, naprawdę. Dobra.
Yeah, from Time's perspective, I think I should have listened to him, but
Nie, ja będę stał.
Nie, ja będę stał.
Przepraszam. Chcesz to coś Dawaj. Dawaj. Marek, Tomek, dawaj. No, Tomek, ale czekaj, Tomek, no. Ja pierdolę. No, ale widzisz, nie dam rady.
Marek, chcesz dalej? Czy nie?
Odejdź sobie.
No nie, idziesz dalej.
Ja się przepraszam teraz.
Przepraszam, to ty mnie obraziłeś.
Nie, ty nas cały czas obrażasz. No chodźmy. Chodź. Dawaj. Chodź, idziemy stąd. Nie chcemy z nimi nic wspólnego, bo nas obraża.
Cześć Tomek.
this one's interesting.
Cześć Maka. Cześć Marek. A ty zostajesz?
Nie.
No to cześć.
Cześć. Cześć Marek. Jesteś kim jesteś? Dzięki swojej matce.
Nie obrażaj swojej matki, jesteś tym?
Swojej matce.
Yeah, I don't know why I used that phrase, but yeah, it's undisputable. Yeah, we are who we are, mostly because of our parents, right?
Nie chodzi o to.
Marek, jesteś tym, kim jesteś.
Jeszcze raz robisz.
Dzięki swojej
O,
matce.
zobacz, może
Nie możesz. O, Marek, Marek. Marek.
Marek,
Wycięty.
jesteś tym, kim jesteś.
Jesteś dzięki swoim rodzicom.
Nie śmiej się Marek.
Twoi rodzice.
Dokładnie.
Prawdziwy. Dlatego co się stało? Co się stało istotnego? W czym? W tym co robię w muzyce? Jakby to było? Oj, ta piękna muzyka jest. Nie nagrywaj. Ja puszczam tą muzykę. Nie mówię do ciebie, tylko do niego. On nagrywa wszystko.
Marek,
Nie, Marek, ja sobie przeglądam internet. Marek, ja ci... Właśnie dokładnie tak. Raz, dwa,
Kabzior,
trzy,
weź ten kurwa to.
Ja nie przeglądam.
przeglądam jego internetu, mnie nie...
Nagrywam.
Yeah, so the situation kind of de-escalated itself. So, anyways, yeah, so we did some blank firing.
Seba! Sebastian! Strzelaj do mnie. Strzelam ci w kolana. Co?
Dawaj, dawaj Seba, dawaj! Seba, dawaj, dawaj! No to
Z kapiszon tylko.
dawaj wal!
Wszystko, Sebuś.
Puść, wszystko! Jeszcze coś jest! Teraz.
Puszce jest w chuj.
From Time's perspective, I don't think he was talking about the clip, the magazine. And then I essentially fired up a flare that I also bought for the purpose of that reenactment filming the next day. And this turned out to be my last recording of that night. I don't remember actually stopping this video. So this is literally the moment I lost consciousness. 21:06 on 11th July 2020. This is literally when I lost my consciousness, and this is a sort of a timestamp of that, because I don't remember stopping that video. So I literally lost my consciousness there and then. You can listen to the conversations in the background. I think they're quite telling.
Ale jak to się nazywa? Co się stało? Coś się grzeje, czuję zaburzenie mocy. Co się stało? Wydaje, nie? Ale zaburzenie mocy. O Jezu, ale zaburzenie mocy. Zaburzenie mocy, nie wiem o co chodzi. Coś się wydarzyło, ale zaburzenie mocy. Wystarczy, że tak masz pięknie. Muszę mieć takie spodnie. Zemdleję. Przez śmierć. Przez śmierć. Przez śmierć. Ale to jeszcze nic. Jak odzyskam od baby, którą kocham, kupiła mi rok temu. Marek, fajnie, samym komputerze, ale w którym wieczorze jest te wątkie kieszonki tu. No. Oni nie robili. Marek, PKMO.
So 21:06 or 9:06 p.m. This is the very last moment that of my recollection, right? I don't remember stopping this video, so this is literally the timestamp of me losing my consciousness. Now let's have a look at Maciek's pictures taken that night. That's 20 minutes after I lost my consciousness, right? 21:26, literally 20 minutes after. And metadata of these pictures. Pay attention to the body language. It's quite telling, right? The poses that they take. Poses are staged. Facial expressions are also quite telling, but then again, it's blurred. So it's quite difficult to show that. But it seems like it was sort of a image story that they were trying to come up with. Yeah, those pictures are definitely staged for a reason. It's quite apparent. (22:08 or 10:08 p.m.). Pay attention to the long intervals between those pictures being taken. It seems like there's a couple of pictures taken in one moment, and there's a long pause, and then again a couple of pictures taken again, as if they were doing that for a reason, right? They were doing something else, then they would come back to that place, right? Take some extra pictures just to have evidence that they were in that campsite. Also noticed that they did not take a single picture of me during the time I passed out, right? Which is quite unusual. Anytime that happens, you would get people, like you would expect people to take pictures of you just for laughs and giggles. Maybe draw something on with a marker on the cheek or something. I regained my consciousness as quickly as I lost it. There was no, like when you go to sleep, there's a feeling of passing of time. There was no such thing with this one. It's just literally like I teleported, like I time warped 7 hours later, right? So I woke up at 4:03, literally on the T, because this is the first thing I did as I started recording, and literally this is a timestamp of me waking up. And obviously it was light, and then all of a sudden, bam, it was dark, right? I woke up in a car, sleeping next to Sebastian. There was a knife on a dashboard, the knife that he had in on his waist in the back, which obviously got me a little bit worried. I thought maybe what if he had to use the knife to kind of split us up? What if there was some sort of altercation? My left leg was slightly numbed. Was it left or right? I would have to double check. It felt slightly numbed. Yeah, it was like adrenaline. I woke up with an adrenaline. That was interesting. So yeah, that knife was a bit distressing because I like I said, I got worried that maybe I got in some sort of altercation, given the situation that that happened the day before, the argument. I checked my phone, I opened up my Instagram, and my Instagram was logged in on one of my, let's say, secondary Instagram accounts, the lurker accounts, however you want to call them. And what was interesting is the first person that appeared in People You Might Know was an Instagram username that looked very much like a name of the chief commercial officer of the private aviation company that I worked for, who for a while was my direct line manager, and then I was reporting to him indirectly. I was still taking a lot of assignments, a lot of tasks from him, and that account was blank. There was there was no profile picture, there was no content, there was nothing there, but it got me scared. What if I actually, what if it's him and I actually send him some pictures or something. So obviously that I checked the messages, there was nothing, right? But yeah, that was quite stressful. Then again, someone must have switched to that account. I'm normally logged in onto my main account. While I was playing with my phone, I could hear laughs, laughter coming from the main camping site, a couple of meters away, or 10, 15, 20 meters away. So these people were wide awake, and it seems like they were in very, very good moods. So that was interesting. At some point, Thomas approached me from the left-hand side, the driver's side, where I was sitting, and he was smiling, and it looked as if he wanted to see if I'm okay, if I'm alive. He was smiling, and I essentially showed him the finger, and then he went back to the campsite. I had this strange feeling like someone was browsing my phone. I remember going to on Facebook, downgrading my friendship level with Tomasz and Maciej. I downgraded our friendship to like standard friends. I think that it was set to close friends, and then I downgraded it to friends. I don't know, for some reason I did that, probably because of that argument the previous day, or those arguments the day before. But I definitely had a feeling of someone browsing my phone. Then I checked an Instagram conversation with another co-worker of mine from that private aviation company, a customer experience manager based in Los Angeles, Dennison. We spoke the day before. We chatted about the coin. I posted it on my Instagram story, that coin that Richard presented. He replied, "Oh wow," he reacted to a story that I supposedly posted on my Instagram. That story was later deleted, right? So he reacted to that story after I passed out, and that story was most likely posted after I passed out, because I did not delete any stories from my Instagram storyline. Right? My reply at 3:01 a.m. also couldn't have been written by me, because at the time I was still sleeping, right? I was still unconscious. So it couldn't have been me at 3:01, but nevertheless I picked up this conversation at 4:31 without thinking twice about it, right? But it definitely wasn't me who messaged him at 3:01 a.m. Or if it was me, then it was definitely done unconsciously, but I don't think it was me. It was someone who was playing with my phone. Right? This is the most important bit about this particular conversation. In November 2020, when I discovered this case, or I discovered a possibility of such situation occurring, I actually asked him, I inquired about that conversation from that night, and Dennison stated that whatever I posted that night, that was later deleted, it was a picture of me not smiling. It was a picture of me not smiling, but he does not remember why. So he remembers that I was not smiling in that picture, but he does not remember why, right? Now it's quite apparent that he does remember what this picture was and why I was not smiling. He just plays a game of not remembering, right? I'll get to that later. what a gold mine for history, right? This comment in particular is quite telling. Another co-worker from that private aviation company, Igor, Russian national, cool guy. As you can see, his reaction to my story, echo of war, and as you can see, this story is visible, right? It wasn't deleted because I don't tend to delete my Instagram stories. So I continue to browse my phone. I checked for if there were any connections, any phone calls. There was nothing. And at some point, Sebastian woke up, and essentially he took his sleeping bag or whatever he was using for poncho, whatever. I think it was a sleeping bag. Yeah, he essentially left the car and went back to that campsite. So I was left in the car by myself. And later on, I was trying to get some sleep. I was essentially closing my eyes, trying to get some extra rest. I just couldn't fall asleep, and it seemed like these guys in the main camp, they were wide awake. There were laughs, there were jokes you could hear. They were having a great time. So that was quite interesting. It seems like tiredness did not apply to them, and the amount of alcohol that we had was it was pretty equal. Like no one drank more or less, right? I definitely drank at the same rate as everyone else did. So quite interesting the energy levels, right?
Aktorem. Życie to film. Aktorem. Życie to film. Co film? No ja napisałem, że to ja tam leżę, nie? Co film? No ja napisałem, że to ja tam leżę, nie? Ja od razu wiedziałem, że to będzie biegał od tego na sobie, że dostałem tym krzesłem w ryj. Z krzesłem czy z tym krzesłem? Oj wiecie, ja to jakiś meble.
Here I recorded Sebastian, trying his helmet on, trying his military equipment on and stuff. Because obviously the plan for the next day was for me to film them or take pictures of them, quite professional pictures of them in their military equipment, in their gear. It's like part of their hobby, reenactment, right? So they collect all that stuff, they put it on, take pictures of themselves. Yeah, what was interesting was the fact that Sebastian was spitting a lot, and you can see that in the video. I don't understand why. Didn't seem like there was any particular reason for him to be spitting so much, unless he was trying to, convey something, communicate something, make fun of something, right? It looked very out of order. Also, what was interesting is I felt that my face felt refreshed. It felt like there was some sort of a wash. It just felt refreshed. Felt very rejuvenated, right? And when you compare it with the state the previous day, right, barbecue, you can see some, it's in stark contrast to that, and that's the reason I took that selfie. So when I joined them in that main camp, all jokes and laughter, they stopped, as if my presence affected their ability to have fun. So they stopped, and Marek, he asked me a question. He asked me, why does no one like me? To which my reply was that his mother likes me. That absolutely stopped him there and then, as if I pressed a button. He stopped asking any questions. Maciej went on a side, and I could hear him saying something to the like of, "Oh, I didn't know he was such a stud," and he impressed me with this. I'm really impressed with that. Something to the like of that. I spoke to Boris to ask him what happened when I lost my consciousness. He replied something to the like of, The police came. The police came in the morning, right? To which obviously I felt a little bit concerned, because what if I did something, right? I know there was an argument or something. They actually needed to call the police or something. So that got me a little bit concerned. Definitely memorable. They told me that I fell asleep. In a car, that fell asleep on my leg. That was their explanation to why my leg felt slightly numb. This is my interview. This is my conversation with Sebastian from November 2020, and as you can see, it seems like he's trying to cryptically communicate with me that that police did in fact come after I passed out, right? And he might be hinting towards a friend of mine, Franciszek.
Słyszysz się? Odsłuchaj to. I to było 21, 22. Policjant. Skąd mam wiedzieć, o której to było? Nie wiem.
What was also interesting was that Sebastian went out in the middle of a field and he defecated. It just looked very out of ordinary. Obviously, everyone was kind of. They didn't seem like it was something super unusual, right? That was interesting. It didn't. That was funny. I took a picture of that.
Ty, ale faktycznie Seba zesrał się najpierw, a potem wyszło na stojąco. I coś nie wyszło. Dupę.
Overall, the atmosphere was quite sad. Yeah, that was definitely memorable. Having breakfast, some leftover sausages. Marek said something to the like of, "Oh, even the dog won't eat anymore. Even the dog will not eat anymore," which was quite unusual, out of ordinary. Now, what's very suspicious is that they did not take any pictures of me sleeping or just being unconscious. Like anyone who ever fell asleep or fell unconscious at a party would agree that it's quite normal for everyone else to, I don't know, take funny pictures, I don't know, draw something on a cheek with a marker or something. At the very least, take a picture, right, for laughs and giggles. They did not. There's nothing of such nature, right? So that's very suspicious. And these people, they tend to do that. Sebastian himself sent me a couple of pictures from their previous trips of people being unconscious. So yeah, definitely there's a question mark there, right? I noticed that a lot of them they would go outside, they would go a little bit further and they would have a conversation with each other, and I was really afraid that I might have done something stupid or something. At some point I recorded a conversation that they were having, and that conversation was I didn't think about it twice. I didn't review it all the way until February 2021. When I tried to do so, it was literally deleted in front of my eyes, like on my, in front. While I was trying to play it, it was just, all of the recordings on my phone, they showed up as loading, and that one was deleted in front of my eyes. And then my phone started writing to me. I initially thought it might have been some sort of a glitch, but quickly started recording that. And as you can see, it seems like it's some sort of a cryptic communication. Now, another interesting thing is that they put a pair of old shoes into that stack of hay, that hay stack, and they took a lot of pictures and they posted it on their Facebook. Tomasz posted it on his Facebook. It seems like it's, again, it fits into that inside joke theme, right? There's definitely some communication there. They're trying to convey something. I took videos and pictures of them. As you can see, it looks quite professional, quite good. I really liked it. What was interesting, when I was trying to use my camera, it felt like I completely forgot how to use it. Like I was struggling with some settings. It felt like I completely forgot how to use that camera. It just like my brain was blank at that moment with regards to operating that camera, right? So it took me a while. So that was very odd. That was very out of ordinary, unusual, right? And I don't think it has to do with drinking alcohol, for sure. yeah, at some point he threw up again in front of everyone, as if he was doing that on purpose, right? When we were leaving, Tomasz he gave me a spent 40 millimeter shell, a grenade launcher shell, which was quite unusual, as if he was trying to tell me something. We all left Ryszard's estate. Now I stopped by that local grocery store, the grocery store that I mentioned before. So we arrived at the store. I felt super dehydrated, so I bought some food, some water for myself and Sebastian. Didn't feel comfortable driving, so I figured I'm gonna go for a walk. Anyways, I remember downing 1.5 liters of water very quickly. Sebastian stayed in a car. I left him in a car. He was just resting, and I went for a walk. And it was like an hour walk around the forest. I took a leak. I urinated, and I remember that color of my urine was like absolutely yellow. It was like artificial yellow. It was like unnatural yellow. Let's put it that way. I also defecated in the forest as well. I think my metabolism jump started, and as I was doing my rounds around the forest, I heard some laughs, and it was quite unusual, right? Those laughs were quite loud, and it wasn't 1-2 people. It seemed like it was a group of people laughing. And looking back at my Google timeline, it seems like I was in direct line, 300 meters in direct line of that mansion that I mentioned before. That mansion that was still under construction, that was still technically under final steps of construction. Obviously, it could have been anyone, right? It could have been anyone. It's Sunday, summertime, right? It could have been anyone laughing, but it seemed like it was those were larger groups of people. It was a larger group of people. It wasn't 1, 2, 3 people laughing. It was, and it was quite loud. It was definitely echoing around the forest. Yeah, and I bought new batteries for the breathalyzer. Showed up as 0. I recorded that, and as you can see in the recording, you can see that my hair, it seemed like it was my hair was blow dried. That's how it looks like, right? I think it was blow dried. It looks blow dried. I certainly did not blow dry my hair, right? During that night. Now, when I started investigating this case, I went through a lot of files that were sent to me, a lot of conversations, and I analyzed them thoroughly, and I came across this video. This video was sent to me most likely on Messenger, or it appeared on my Instagram timeline, which would have been unusual, but then again, it happens. And when you look closely at this video, you can tell that this looks very much like that mansion. It looks very much like the mansion that's located 1.8 kilometers away from Ryszard's estate. And it's essentially a video of a girl twerking, right? So it's a very cool video. It looks, that mansion, that house, that building in the background looks very much like the building that's 1.8 kilometers away from Ryszard's estate, where we were camping that night. Very interesting. I find it very suspicious, and most likely there's a link, and most likely this is why it was sent to me.
Przyjechali, nie? W nocy. Ekipa. I tak z ciekawości, ile tych osób było, jak tu przyjechali? To było 10 osób, 15, 20 czy więcej? Chyba grupa taka. Ale sporo, nie? I to było tak, ale co, 30 plus, 40 plus, 50 plus?
Nie, to Ponad 20.
Ponad 20.
Ale nie liczyłem kiedy to.
Ale pewnie, a proporcja kobiet, mężczyzn, to było więcej kobiet czy mężczyzn?
Mężczyzn.
Ale kobiet, 30% kobiet, 70% mężczyzn, czy...
Ja nie byłem ściśki.
No pewnie, no.
Nawet nie ten Krzyżu 2 razy tam byłem koło.
No, a gdzie my byliśmy? Gdzie my byliśmy?
To nie było.
Na łące. Na łące to nie było w pomieszczeniu?
No nie. Pomieszczeniu to było, na drugi,
Na rano, tak?
Zaraz wyszło, że zrobili takie...
Zrobiliśmy sobie, a w którym pomieszczeniu to było? Można to zobaczyć, to pomieszczenie?
I'm sorry, but we saw you in person. You're the last person that I've seen in person.
Kabzior, to już wiesz, dlaczego ci służby inwigilują. Przez Pietrasa. Trzeba było zerwać kontakt, póki jeszcze kurwa była okazja, nie? A teraz? Ale jeżeli kurwa to jest prawda, to ja pierdolę, nie?